Tonight, Donald Trump addresses his nation.
Our nation is back, bigger, better, richer, and stronger than ever before.
His popularity in decline and signature tariff plan stalled. The U.S. president delivers his State of the Union, what it means for Canada. Stability returns to Mexico as international flights resume.
But we still have friends now who are still trapped. We're lucky.
But travel warnings remain.
It's not worth the risk.
Should Canadians change their spring break plans? AI executives summoned to Ottawa after revelations the Tumbler Ridge shooter was banned from ChatGPT months before the shooting.
We were disappointed that they did not have substantial answers for us.
The concerning lack of regulations on AI and safety.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us. Donald Trump has delivered his State of the Union address, the longest ever in American history, touting his achievements, especially on the economy, and basking in the applause. Some tense moments, too, even some shouting with Democrats in the audience. So this speech comes at a pivotal moment for the U.S. president. His popularity is low. He's facing fierce criticism over his immigration policies and dealing with a major loss at the Supreme Court over his global tariffs. All this with the midterm elections later this year. Paul Hunter in Washington was, of course, listening carefully to every word, assessing all the moments. Paul, what's your sense of the tone and the significance of what he said?
Yeah, look, he's got dramatically low approval ratings, under fire on a variety of issues. His party already facing, as you noted, what's predicted to be a losing battle in the coming midterm elections, but you'd never know it from Donald Trump tonight. He came out energized, upbeat, forceful, like a Trump campaign rally on the biggest platform of the year for him. What did he tell Americans? That the U.S. economy is rolling, life is great, a golden age, and getting better. Inflation is down, the stock market up. His crackdown on immigration is the only way to go. Here's a bit of it.
Our nation is back, bigger, better, richer, and stronger than ever before. Our country is winning again. In fact, we're winning so much that we really don't know what to do about it. People are asking me, please, 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 Mr. President, we're winning too much. We can't take it anymore.
But on immigration, heckling from Democrats and anger from Trump. Minnesota Democrat Ilhan Omar interrupting Trump to shout, "You killed Americans," referencing the 2 Americans killed by federal authorities during protests in Minnesota over Trump's crackdown on immigrants. Here's how that played out.
The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials.
And so it went. But it's his message on the economy that Trump wants people to have as the takeaway. The problem is that most Americans don't believe him when he says it's good and getting better in the U.S. Instead, they feel an economy with higher prices, less affordability, and they blame Trump. It's the issue voters say matters to them more than anything else, Adrian, with Trump on that tonight saying, in effect, trust him.
And of course, Paul, I mean, the rest of the world was also hanging on to what was said. They certainly would have heard a lot of bragging about the U.S. military action in various parts of the planet.
Yeah, the matter of Iran, Adrian, loomed over everything tonight. There is a giant U.S. military buildup in the Iran region as the world wonders, will America strike? And if so, will war follow? Short answer here is there was little fresh clarity from Trump on what's next on that. He said Iran has missiles that can threaten Europe and is building missiles that can reach the U.S. He noted, in his words, the U.S. wiped out Iranian nuclear capabilities last year, but he said Iran wants to start all over to now try to build such weaponry. Trump wants a diplomatic solution, he said, but so far Iran hasn't said what Trump called the magic words, that it will never have a nuclear weapon. Said Trump, he will never allow Iran to have one, adding no one should doubt America's resolve, Adrian.
Okay, well, the world is waiting to see what happens next. That is Paul Hunter in Washington. So next, let's go to CBC News Chief Political Correspondent Rosemary Barton. Rosie, always a lot on the line for Canada whenever Trump speaks.
Yeah, Adrian, this is one of these moments where Canada not getting specifically mentioned, just fine for the government. Given the administration's loss at the Supreme Court on Friday, it is not surprising that Donald Trump did raise the issue of tariffs, saying that foreign countries pay tariffs and that the U.S. economy is benefiting from that. Of course, that is not the case. Most of the tariff costs are paid for by American companies and consumers in the United States. The president did mention tariffs under a national security basis, which is what has been used in the sectoral tariffs against Canada. Think of steel and aluminum. But Trump also said countries who have deals with him already will likely want to stick with those deals and not renegotiate them, which may actually be helpful for the prime minister, who has yet to reach a deal, of course. No mention here tonight, Adrian, of CUSMA nor of the president's intent in those negotiations. In fact, the only direct mention of Canada was in relation to the U.S. Olympic hockey team, who were present for the speech. Take a listen.
The men's gold medal Olympic hockey team. Come on in. They beat a fantastic Canadian team in overtime, as everybody saw, as did the American women.
President could have taken some potshots there, certainly has been doing that on social media, but chose not to. The Canadian government's strategy right now, Adrian, is twofold. One, to wait it out because they are well aware of all the pressures that the president is under, as Paul just talked about. And two, keep diversifying trade. And that's why the prime minister is headed tomorrow to Australia, India, and Japan.
All right. Thank you, Rosie. That's CBC News Chief Political Correspondent Rosemary Barton in Ottawa tonight. So let's bring in Katie Simpson now, who's on Capitol Hill. Katie, you just spoke, I gather, with the top White House official on trade, Jamieson Greer. What did you learn?
Yeah, he was emerging from the chamber after the speech finished, and so we saddled up to him and asked him a series of questions about how trade is going with Canada. He is the lead person who's been dealing directly with the Canadian ambassador and with Dominic LeBlanc, the minister leading it from the Canadian perspective. He said that he's in constant communication with his Canadian counterparts, and then he suggested that perhaps if things are going to progress between Canada and the U.S., that Canada should be open to the idea of accepting a higher tariff in order for Donald Trump to achieve his goal of bringing more jobs to America. Have a listen.
What I will say is, when we go to other countries and we make a deal with them, the other countries, they agree that we can have a tariff on them, that we can have a protective tariff to protect our industries as we try to reshore, and they open their markets to us. If Canada wants to agree that we can have some level of higher tariff on them while they open up their markets to us and things like dairy and other things, then that's a helpful conversation. We have very open lines of communication. We'll keep talking. I tend to try not to negotiate in the press or anything like that, and we have discussions ongoing. So if something happens, I'll let you know.
So I followed up with him and said, higher tariff, isn't the point of CUSMA or USMCA to have no tariff there? And then he talked about how he feels that Canada isn't living up to some aspects of the deal. One other thing I should mention, Adrian, as we were standing here, House Speaker Mike Johnson walked by and I said, hey, we're from Canada, can I talk to you? And he agreed. And so we were talking about a range of things, but I asked him, Canadians are really upset about the way that Donald Trump talks about Canada and the tariff threats. And he essentially said that Canadians need to not take Donald Trump so seriously and that don't take him literally, take him seriously, but don't take him literally.
Okay, interesting. There's also some strong reaction to Trump's address that I think you're hearing in that hall tonight. What is it that you're hearing?
Yeah, well, there was that one moment in the speech where a Democratic representative, Al Green, he was actually escorted out of the chamber. And that's because he'd held up a sign inside. He wanted to show Donald Trump that says black people aren't apes. That's in response to that racist video that Donald Trump posted on his social media platform. We spoke with Representative Green after, and he wanted to make sure that after that happened, the president didn't forget he offended so many Americans.
This has just been another bump in the road, but it's not for me and other people of color. So I wanted him to see this, and I showed it to him, and I wanted to be in close proximity to him when he saw it.
Representative Green said he also had a message for Canadians. He appreciated the positions of the Canadian government standing up to the Trump administration in the face of the ongoing tariff and trade war.
That is Katie Simpson on Capitol Hill tonight. Thank you. And later in the hour, we will take a closer look at some of Trump's claims in his lengthy State of the Union address. Now, normalcy is slowly returning to the Mexican tourist hotspot, Puerto Vallarta. Stranded Canadians are now able to fly out. But as Jorge Barrera explains, violence and fear have taken a toll, and some worry that will last.
The fear is still fresh for journalist Guadalupe Martinez after getting caught up in the violence in Puerto Vallarta. I thought he was going to shoot us, she says, describing how a masked man carjacked her and her husband at gunpoint. Well, she covered the chaos engulfing her city Sunday. It was triggered by the death of El Mencho, leader of the powerful Jalisco New Generation cartel, in a military raid. Martinez thinks her car was one of the many set on fire in the aftermath to block the military operation, but doesn't know for sure. I didn't look back, she says. The violence is now subsiding. A Mexican Navy warship docked in Puerto Vallarta projects strength and stability, but many here still worry about the future. All of Puerto Vallarta depends on tourism, says Daniela Cueva Santander, a local business owner. We're worried those that are here will want to leave or people won't want to come, she says. At the airport, international flights resumed.
We were meant to fly out on Sunday morning, and we were about to get into the cab when we got the alert that everything was going down.
Adam Melham and his partner from Toronto managed to get one of the first Air Canada flights out on Tuesday.
We were very lucky because we acted very fast, but we still have friends now who are still trapped. Like they don't even know when they're going to get out still. So we're lucky.
Meanwhile, this Ontario couple just landed to start their vacation.
Sunshine and yeah, fun.
It's good to know everything's open.
Sunday's events were far from their minds.
They wouldn't send us if I didn't think if it wasn't safe, right? So, yeah, they would.
Well, a familiar calm has returned to the city, and Puerto Vallarta's state of Jalisco has lifted its code red, and children, they're going back to school on Wednesday.
So, Jorge, that is a very good point about the schools. With all the talk about the tourists, the focus sometimes shifts from the residents and how they're coping.
Well, these are people who can't just fly out of here. And we spoke with the mayor of Puerto Vallarta, and he told us that dozens of stores were targeted and over 200 vehicles were destroyed. And their owners, they're worried about the ongoing financial burden and whether their insurance is even going to cover the loss.
Good point. All right, that is Jorge Barrera in Puerto Vallarta. Now, that violence is weighing on some would-be vacationers still here in Canada, many with spring break plans already set. From safety to cancellation fees, Nisha Patel takes a look at the advice now being offered.
Flights from Canada to Mexico are getting back on track, and many travelers are eager to take off, despite days of violence that locked down Puerto Vallarta.
I think we're feeling pretty safe about it, and we'll, keep watching the situation.
But some travelers are pivoting to other countries instead.
It's not worth the risk. Don't want to get stuck there.
Even though it seems like it's clearing up, we don't know if it will stay stable.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister said the situation is volatile and evolving every day. And Global Affairs is advising Canadians to avoid all non-essential travel to the parts of Mexico in orange and to exercise a high degree of caution in areas in yellow, including Cabo San Lucas, Puerto Vallarta, and Cancun. Airlines, though, are only offering flexible rebooking for the next few days.
Those folks who have March break plans coming up, that's not going to be covered, and you'd be subject to any cancellation provisions that you'd normally see.
Travelers who purchase trip insurance may have more leeway. Still, policies vary widely. And for those without insurance who want to change plans,
you're likely not going to have any recourse for getting your money back if the airlines haven't canceled the flights themselves, or if the government doesn't issue elevate the advisory further.
Size, food, water. It's a tough decision for Cindy Redmile. The single mom is supposed to be trading the winter cold for this Cancun beach next week.
I still am concerned because everything that's happened is so fresh still. So I feel like I will wait it out a couple more days.
She worries about getting trapped at the airport and delays in making it home.
I'm 50-50. I'm on the fence about canceling because I am going with my youngest daughter and her safety is utmost importance to me.
Air Canada, WestJet, Air Transat and Porter have all resumed scheduled flights. Air Canada and WestJet have added extra capacity to bring more people home. Flair Airlines says it will resume scheduled flights on Wednesday. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Canada's Minister of AI wants answers from the makers of ChatGPT about why they didn't report the account of the Tumbler Ridge shooter to police after it was flagged by the company. OpenAI executives were called to Ottawa, and as Marina von Stackelberg reports, ministers say what they heard was concerning.
Was there anything troubling that you heard?
Yes.
What exactly did you hear?
Federal ministers leaving a meeting with executives from OpenAI say they now have more questions than answers. The tech company behind ChatGPT summoned to Ottawa following concerning new details about what it knew about the Tumbler Ridge shooter.
We have real questions about their safety protocols, both on the technical and the human side, their escalation thresholds, when they do it, how they make those decisions, when they inform police.
OpenAI says it banned the Tumbler Ridge shooter from ChatGPT 8 months before the mass shooting. 8 people were killed, including 6 children. Staff at OpenAI internally flagged troubling posts, including about gun violence, but decided not to tell police until after the attack.
The news that OpenAI might have had the opportunity to stop this terrible tragedy in Tumbler Ridge is just devastating.
BC Premier David Eby wants Ottawa to require big tech companies to report potential violence, and he wants OpenAI to come to BC.
I want them to meet with the families. I want them to look in the eyes of these families and tell them why they made the call they did. And ultimately, I want British Columbians to know what they knew.
We have no regulatory or oversight mechanism.
This expert says the federal government urgently needs to legislate platforms like ChatGPT, requiring them to be more transparent.
They will not do it on their own, and we know that from 20 years of experience with large technology platforms who do not self-regulate sufficiently. So we need to make them. There's no question about that.
OpenAI says it's strengthening its safeguards and promises to provide more measures in the coming days. So far, the federal government has made no commitment to regulate AI companies. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Today marks 4 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Why the path to peace is still out of reach. Next. The U.S. women's Olympic hockey team declines Trump's invitation.
We're going to have to bring the women's team. You do know that.
Absolutely.
I do believe I probably would be impeached, okay?
The locker room call some are calling out. Plus, a young Canadian cricket player sets a new record.
I stick with me until the day I leave this earth.
We're back in 2.
Morning.
In a London court, comedian Russell Brand pleaded not guilty to 2 additional charges of rape and sexual assault stemming from alleged offenses in 2009 with 2 women. The 50-year-old was already facing 5 charges, including rape and sexual assault involving 4 women dating back to 1999. He also pleaded not guilty to those charges. And the British government has agreed to release documents related to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's appointment as a trade envoy amid intense scrutiny over his ties to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The trade minister had some harsh words for the former prince.
A rude, arrogant and entitled man who could not distinguish between the public interest, which he said he served, and his own private interest.
Andrew was arrested last week on suspicion he shared confidential material with Epstein while he was a trade representative from 2001 to 2011. He's denied any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein. Police have been combing through Andrew's former home and now say that search is over. Well, the bloodiest conflict in Europe since the Second World War is now entering its 5th year. The war in Ukraine has killed hundreds of thousands of people by most estimates, primarily Russian soldiers. And as Margaret Evans shows us, Ukraine is no closer to peace.
4 years in and counting. Prayers for Ukraine's war dead and those still fighting in the trenches. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, flanked by European Union leaders, making what's become an annual pilgrimage of support. It is an unspeakably painful day for Ukrainians. Time standing still for the dead, but not those left behind to mourn and to carry on the fight in their name. Somehow it feels like this war has been going on forever, says 19-year-old Valeria Pivin, whose father was killed. The boys did not die for nothing, says her mother, Irena. I strongly believe that they were on their way to victory. Volodymyr Zelensky says it will come if there's sustained support from Ukraine's allies, a point he repeated to the European Parliament over a €90 billion loan being blocked by Hungary.
This is a real financial guarantee of our security and our resilience, and it must be implemented.
It's a reminder of the careful path Zelensky is treading, not just within the European Union, but with an often unpredictable leader in the White House. In Kyiv, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen offered EU assurances.
This word cannot be broken, so we will deliver on the loan, one way or the other.
The question, of course, is when, and will it come in time to make a difference? In Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin accused Ukraine and its Western allies of what he called mass terror by shelling cities and sabotaging infrastructure because they haven't succeeded on the battlefield. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Canada used today's anniversary to announce an additional $2 billion in aid for Ukraine.
We're in it for the long haul. Russia is failing. The sooner they come to the table and actually participate in peace negotiations, the better it will be.
Prime Minister says Canada will also provide Ukraine with 400 armored vehicles. In addition, Ottawa added new sanctions against Russia. It targets, in part, Russia's shadow fleet of oil tankers, like this suspected one seen here near France, trying to skirt international measures against Moscow. Well, Donald Trump often boasts about his country's economy, but how is it really faring?
So his overall grade is an F. He's failing on many, many major fronts.
Economists give the U.S. president his report card. And Trump's war on wind.
We're not going to do the wind thing. Wind, big ugly windmills, they ruin your neighborhood.
Why that could be to Canada's advantage. The National breaks down the story shaping our world. Next. Most of the gold medal winning men's Olympic hockey team is in Washington tonight, accepting an invite from the president after a controversial phone call shortly after the game. Cam McIntosh now with what was said and the reaction since.
It's a low shot. She scores!
From celebrating their gold medal win last week, the U.S. women's Olympic hockey team now quietly declining an invitation from the U.S. president.
You only played not bad.
After Donald Trump made this call to the men's team after its win Sunday, inviting them to the State of the Union, then mentioning,
We're going to have to bring the women's team, you do know that.
Forward Haley Skamura spoke to the Hockey Lifers podcast.
The call was what it was, and honestly, the outpouring of love and support we've kind of received since that has outweighed any other feelings.
Trump's comments in the call about the women's team angering the Democratic Women's Caucus, who called it demeaning, amid other backlash.
The last time Trump invited a woman with a medal to the White House, he made her give it to him.
USA Hockey says the team declined a formal invite due to academic and professional commitments, but was honored to be acknowledged. 20 of the 25 men's players went to the White House with permission of the NHL and met Trump. Matthew Tkachuk even lending the president his medal.
I'm not giving it back. I'm not giving it.
I'll trade you that for a pen.
Hey, that's cool.
Earlier on morning TV, overtime heroes Jack and Quinn Hughes lamenting any controversy, praising the women's win.
We're extremely happy for them. We got double gold, like men's and women's side. Like that is so incredible. And I want to celebrate that, and I don't want that to be overshadowed.
Olympic hockey team.
At the State of the Union, Trump announcing USA goalie and Winnipeg Jet Connor Hellebuck, now dubbed the Secretary of Defense, will get the country's highest civilian honor.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom.
For the women's team, absent from it all, letting their gold medal speak for itself. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now let's take a closer look at the State of the Union address and the claims the president made. Donald Trump's attack on the U.S. wind industry halted work on 5 major projects.
Those big windmills are so pathetic and so bad.
A look at the law and politics and the fight to save them. But first,
What word have you not heard over the last 2 weeks? Affordability. Because I've won. I've won affordability.
just over a year into his second term, a check-in on the progress of Trump's economic promises and policies. Now, those promises featured heavily tonight in Donald Trump's State of the Union address. Let's check in with Lindsay Duncombe, who was checking the facts. Lindsay, what stood out?
Well, Adrian, I was struck by how the president spoke about the economy in glowing terms. He described it as roaring, and that's an exaggeration. He said inflation is plummeting. Again, an exaggeration. Inflation is slowing, but it is still higher than the Fed's target of 2%. I want you to check this out. If you look at the graphic, you can see there's a big post-pandemic drop that actually started before Trump took office. And January's inflation rate was 2.4%. Economists say it is those tariffs that continue to drive costs up.
Okay, so in terms of tariffs, certainly he spoke about them tonight. What did he have to say?
Well, Trump correctly said that hundreds of billions of dollars have been raised by tariffs in 2025. The United States collected $287 billion in tariffs, and nearly $100 billion of that, Adrian, was collected in just the last 3 months of the year. But he also said this.
As time goes by, I believe the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax, taking a great financial burden off the people that I love.
That is not true. Earlier this month, the Congressional Budget Office said 95% of the tariffs collected by the United States are being paid by Americans.
Lindsay, the speech wasn't entirely about domestic policy. He did veer into foreign policy. When he did that, what stood out to you?
Well, Trump said he stopped 8 wars. We counted 3 conflicts Trump can take credit for stopping. Here they are. But after that, it becomes less clear. Gaza is complicated and fighting continues. Yes, Trump helped broker the peace deal, but it's fragile. Trump is also taking credit for deals he had nothing to do with. India says the Americans weren't part of their peace deal with Pakistan. He can't claim Egypt and Ethiopia because they weren't fighting. Same thing with Serbia and Kosovo. Then there's the deal he brokered between Rwanda and the DRC. It's real, but it doesn't include the most potent rebel group. And of course, a war continues to rage in Ukraine, Adrian. Today marks the 4th anniversary of the start of that conflict. Trump said he would end it within 24 hours of taking office.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. That's Lindsay Duncombe in Vancouver tonight. So let's get back to the U.S. economy. Eli Glasner canvassed some experts for their evaluations of the president's performance so far and looked at the report cards they turned in.
The golden age of America begins right now.
All right, it's been a year since Trump's been back in office, so we're going to do an economic report card of sorts. Just how are Americans doing? We're going to drill down, looking at growth.
Our economy is booming, growth is exploding.
Groceries.
What word have you not heard over the last 2 weeks? Affordability.
Manufacturing.
Thousands of businesses are being built.
And the stock market.
Adding $9 trillion in value to retirement accounts.
Eric Talley is a professor of law and business at Columbia University. In terms of the effect on the economy, he rates Trump's first year back a solid B.
There have been aspects of his presidency thus far that have overseen a relatively resilient economy, but along with that is a lot of unpredictability.
When it comes to growth, Trump says the economy is booming. But recent GDP numbers, the rate at which the economy is growing, were sluggish. You see, Wall Street was expecting GDP to come in around 3%, but
this is the first reading of fourth quarter GDP. We came in at 1.4%.
It is a pretty big surprise, particularly given that through the first 3 quarters of 2025, GDP growth was actually pretty good, at least consistent with historical averages. 1.4 is quite low.
One indicator Trump loves to tout is the surging stock market.
I added $9 trillion, and your retirement accounts and 401ks are at the highest level they've ever been.
Earlier this month, the Dow set a new record, crossing 50,000, with the S&P 500 index up 16% and the NASDAQ up 20% at the end of 2025. Matthew Lebo is a political science professor in London, Ontario. He gives Trump the harshest grade.
So his overall grade is an F. He's failing on many major fronts. He's doing permanent damage to the United States in every possible area we could think of, such as trade and security.
With manufacturing employment in the U.S. dropping by 108,000 in 2025, Lebo says Trump needs to look beyond Wall Street.
But wage growth is not going up. A lot of manufacturing jobs have been lost.
Time to turn to one of Trump's least favorite subjects.
And then I have to listen to the fake news talking about affordability.
While the price of eggs has fallen since Trump's been in office, overall food inflation is up 2.9%, with juice up 28% and beef 15%.
Obviously, one of the taglines at the end of the Biden administration is, "Oh my God, have you seen how expensive a carton of eggs is?" Well, now you want to go buy a T-bone. That's really where you're going to take it in the chops, no pun intended.
Barbara Perry is a professor of presidential studies. She gives Trump poor marks when it comes to housing essentials.
That is a D, because for average Americans who supported him, or even those who didn't but hoped that whoever would be president in this term would lower the price of housing and food and fuel.
All right, how about all those tariff-driven manufacturing jobs Trump promised?
Factory construction is up by 41%, and that number is really going to skyrocket right now.
So this is a look at construction spending on manufacturing, basically factories being built or improved, which grew for much of Joe Biden's presidency, but have continued to fall under Trump, down 6.7%.
There have been announcements that some of these international counterparties are going to be investing large amounts of money in the U.S. Most of that still seems to take the form of cheap talk.
And while Trump celebrates the trillions tariffs have brought in,
the tariff is the greatest thing that's happened to this country.
A report from the Tax Foundation says tariffs in 2025 actually cost U.S. households $1,000 each. Add in the cost of the big, beautiful bill, which extended Trump's tax cuts, adding over $4 trillion to the national debt, and Talley wonders what's sustainable.
The U.S. is running an unprecedentedly large deficit, and that will continue. That pot that's in the back of the stove has been turned up to a slow boil, and at some point it could explode.
But with the worst-case debt scenario still far in the future, for the moment, what's growing for U.S. consumers and producers is a sense of concern.
They have been sort of putting out some yellow caution flags and trying to, figure out, okay, look, which way is this economy going? Have we hit this soft landing with the economy, or are we bound to see some more undulation?
Now, tariffs remain Trump's central economic policy, even after last week's Supreme Court decision striking some of them down. That ruling angered the president and confused others because it left open one very big question. How will the money taken in be repaid, if at all? There is no answer to that yet. Now, Trump's objection to large-scale offshore wind projects has put an entire industry on hold.
This industry was booming, and there was a pipeline of work that was promised for decades.
But could their loss be Canada's gain? That is next. On top of costs and competition, proponents of U.S. offshore wind energy have another obstacle to overcome: opposition from the president of the country.
Litigation is Trump's love language, and we have to learn to speak that language right back to him.
How investors with billions on the line are using the courts to fight back. International climate correspondent Susan Ormiston traveled to the U.S. East Coast, where projects have resumed despite the presidential headwinds.
Big ugly windmills, they ruin your neighborhood.
President Trump's been tilting at wind power from day one.
They're a joke. They don't work. The wind doesn't blow. Those big windmills are so pathetic and so bad.
Clear about his intentions.
They kill the birds. They ruin your landscapes.
To gut the industry, especially offshore.
There are windmills all over the place, and they are losers.
We're on the New England coast near Newport, Rhode Island, and 24 kilometers off the coast here is a large wind turbine project nearly finished. One of 5 in development up and down this coast, but twice since August, the U.S. Department of Interior has forced work to stop completely, costing these companies hundreds of millions of dollars and risking workers' jobs. As we're about to show you, this is the center of Donald Trump's war on wind.
I'm sad to say that I think Canada has a big opportunity because of the stain that the Trump administration has left. Our loss will be Canada's gain.
But first, here in the U.S.
This industry was booming, and there was a pipeline of work that was promised for decades, and it's seemingly almost come to a complete halt.
Harry Anton is with the AFL-CIO in Rhode Island. When the wind projects came to New England, workers trained up for offshore.
The second stop work order was issued days before Christmas. They feel betrayed. They feel like they've been punched in the gut.
The stop work orders were aimed at 5 projects along the Atlantic coast. Revolution Wind, half owned by a Danish company, Ørsted, was 87% complete. The Trump administration claimed the projects pose classified national security issues identified by the Department of Defense, in spite of passing years of all previous approvals. In January and February, the companies fought back at the U.S. federal court, and they won all 5 legal challenges.
What we have seen, I think, in this country, whether it's offshore wind or otherwise, is that litigation is Trump's love language, and we have to learn to speak that language right back to him.
So business is back and work is resuming here at the pier in New London, Connecticut. This is the big marshalling hub for offshore wind development, where the giant towers and the blades get assembled before going out to the ocean. Ørsted, that Danish company, and Eversource piled in $100 million to develop this pier. But after the existing projects are up and running, the future looks dimmer.
The money's already spent. The stuff's here, So why are you going to stop it now?
Ian Kapura worked on the refit at the New London Pier.
I think that's just a power trip. He's just trying to use his muscle just to get what he wants. Obviously, that administration's about oil and coal and gas, and the last one wasn't.
In Trump's war on wind, the uncertainty is putting a big chill on future investments. Orsted stock took a dive before heading back up, and the CEO recently told an earnings call, "We have no expectations whatsoever to increase our exposure to offshore wind in the U.S."
Right now, the level of confidence in the market is less than zero. There really is absolutely no confidence in the private sector in this market.
It's pure politics, Trump versus wind and the Democrat voting states on the East Coast. We arranged a call with Rhode Island Democrat Senator Sheldon Whitehouse at his office in Washington.
His whole administration is staffed by stooges of the fossil fuel industry. This wind power is cheap and abundant. And so with all of the funding that the fossil fuel industry has given to Trump, this is kind of payback. Our loss will be Canada's gain.
In a strange twist, the attempted purge here in New England could benefit Canada in the long run, with Nova Scotia's premier pushing for wind power off Canada's east coast. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston is already pitching a Wind West megaproject with initially 5 gigawatts of power off the east coast and potentially 40 in the future. Talking it up at an Ocean Tech conference in New York.
Incredible wind speeds.
And signing a memorandum of understanding to collaborate with Massachusetts.
All right, Nova Scotia.
We connected with the Premier at Government House in Halifax.
The interest is through the roof. This is either the best opportunity in the world or one of the best. There's a lot of eyes on Nova Scotia right now.
Wind West could take a decade and cost $40 billion to build. Transmission lines, another $20 billion. The plan would be to export some of the power to the U.S., says the Premier. You can build the turbines out in the ocean. The technology has advanced, but the transmission lines will be extremely expensive. Who's going to pay for that?
Yeah, a combination. The industry will pay. Governments, there's a role for governments. Tax credits, we're having very encouraging discussions with the federal government.
Back in Rhode Island, Revolution Wind is weeks away from first power, promising lower cost electricity. But the war on wind here does have supporters.
All we're seeing them is taking away trees and taking up space in the ocean, and it's wrong.
What do you think of the president trying to shut them down?
Yeah. Like, it's one of the things I give him a thumbs up on.
The White House warns, with legal appeals pending, the battle is not over yet. But wind power advocates hope fairer winds will ultimately prevail.
While it's a challenge and we have to manage the maniac in the White House in the interim, there is real benefits being seen in these states. So I think we will still see the development of clean power.
Here and up the Atlantic coast in Canada, too.
Susan, let's talk about this Wind West project off of Nova Scotia. How real is it?
It's pretty real, and it's big, and it's costly, but the province just wrapped up 3 months of consultations. They tabled legislation today about what developers would have to pay Nova Scotia in a bidding process that is expected to come later this year. I mean, we're talking about significant scale here, Adrian. 5 gigawatts of power is twice what Nova Scotia uses entirely now, and twice what Niagara Falls produces. So it's a big project, 9 or 10 years down the road, but investment and jobs will come much sooner.
Okay, we will all be watching. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
Coming up, a Canadian teen sets a new cricket world record.
I still can't believe it. This game, this inning changed my life.
His impressive performance on the big stage next in our moment. This is Yuvraj Samra moments after he broke a world record at the Cricket T20 World Cup in India. He became the youngest player to score over 100 runs in an innings. So the 19-year-old batsman from Brampton, Ontario, earned a total of 110 runs against New Zealand, one of the top teams in the world. His record-breaking game makes our moment.
What a wonderful moment for this young man.
I still can't believe it. I scored 100 against New Zealand, being 19 from Canada, the youngest ever player to score 100. That's probably one of the most special things out there. When I made 50, I was like, today might be my day that I can make a big score. And then once I was at 80, I'm like, there's just 20 runs left. Might as well like try to make 100. I couldn't even believe it that I made 100 against New Zealand, like one of the best teams out there in the world. And I was just really happy. My teammates were really happy. Some of the guys got really emotional. My mom was there. She was really emotional. I feel like my dad was the most proud. Like I manifested this moment, like since we qualified for the World Cup, I wrote it down every day. I want to make a name for myself. I want to make an impact. Like tell people out there that Canadians can play cricket and there's good talent. I still can't believe it. Like I feel like this game like changed my life. I'm always gonna remember this innings and probably stick with me until the day I leave this earth.
That is fantastic. And look, just to put this in perspective, Canada's final score was 173, which means he alone scored 60% of the team's runs, which is extraordinary. Good for you. From all of us at the National, thanks for being with us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.